Why is it that some of the kindest people, the ones who bend over backwards to be nice, to be available, to be accommodating, end up feeling the most exhausted, the most taken for granted, and the most disrespected? You know, the ones, maybe it's even you, the person who always says yes, who always smiles even when they're uncomfortable, who gives and gives until there's nothing left. And what do they get in return? Not gratitude, not loyalty, not respect. Usually it's disappointment, betrayal, and the quiet realization that all that friendliness didn't protect them, it exposed them. We've been conditioned to believe that being friendly at all costs makes us good, makes us likable, makes us worthy. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Being too friendly can make you a target. It signals to people who are looking to take advantage that you won't push back, you won't say no, and you won't fight for yourself. And in a world where not everyone has good intentions, that is dangerous. Think about it. How many times have you said yes when your entire body was screaming no? How many times have you gone along with something just to keep the peace, only to feel a knot of resentment twisting inside you later? How many times have you stayed in friendships, relationships, or even workplaces that drained you just because you didn't want to be seen as rude, cold, or difficult? Here's the reality. The more you try to please everyone, the less you please yourself. The more you chase approval, the more you lose respect. And the more you water yourself down so that everyone else feels comfortable, the further you drift from the powerful, authentic person you were meant to be. So let me ask you, what has being too friendly actually cost you? Your peace? Your time? Your dignity? Your voice? Because make no mistake, there is always a cost. And if you don't start drawing the line, you will keep paying the price in ways that rob you of your strength, your self-worth, and your future. This isn't about being cold. It's not about shutting the world out. It's about reclaiming your power, knowing the difference between genuine kindness and self-betrayal, and having the courage to stop giving pieces of yourself away to people who haven't earned them. Because the truth is simple, you don't need to be everyone's friend. You need to be your own protector. Being friendly is a beautiful thing when it comes from a place of strength, authenticity, and intention. It opens doors, creates meaningful connections, and allows you to move through the world with grace. But when friendliness turns into over-friendliness, when it becomes a reflex instead of a choice, it stops being a strength and starts becoming a liability. It turns into a form of self-betrayal. And that betrayal doesn't come from others first. It begins with you betraying your own instincts, your own boundaries, and your own worth. But think about it. How many times have you smiled when you didn't mean it, laughed at a joke that wasn't funny, or nodded along just to keep the peace? How many times have you agreed to something you didn't want to do, only to feel resentment build up inside you later? That's the hidden cost of being too friendly. It chips away at you little by little. On the surface, it looks harmless. You seem accommodating. You seem easygoing. But underneath, every yes that should have been a no is a withdrawal from your own account of self-respect, and eventually that account runs dry. The cost of over-friendliness shows up first in your energy. You become drained because you're constantly pouring into other people without taking time to refill yourself. Every favor you agree to, every unnecessary sure, no problem you give, every sacrifice of your time and energy leaves you depleted. People see you as reliable, dependable, always there. But what they don't see is how much it costs you, how much you've stretched yourself thin just to maintain an image of being the good one. Then it shows up in your relationships. People begin to assume you'll always be available. They stop asking if you're okay with something because history has shown you'll never object. They begin to lean on you, depend on you, and sometimes even exploit you. Not necessarily because they're bad people, but because you've trained them to. When you never set boundaries, you teach others that your needs don't matter as much as theirs. And here's the harsh truth. If you don't value your own boundaries, others won't either. Over-friendliness also erodes your confidence. It may seem like being agreeable makes you liked, but deep down, you begin to feel invisible. You stop recognizing yourself because you're always adjusting to make others comfortable. You bite your tongue when you want to speak. You compromise when you want to stand firm. Over time, you start questioning your own worth. You begin to believe that your value lies in how much you give, how much you please, and how much you can tolerate. That's not confidence. It's dependent. It's tethering your identity to the approval of others instead of anchoring it in your own truth. Another hidden cost is resentment. You may not express it out loud, but you feel it. You feel it when you stay up late helping someone else while neglecting your own needs. You feel it when you keep supporting people who never show up for you. You feel it when you smile through frustration, when you give without gratitude, when you shrink so others can shine. That silent resentment grows heavier over time, and the sad part is, it's not even their fault, it's yours. Because you didn't say no, you didn't draw the line. You allowed your need to be liked to override your need to be respected. There's also a cost to your opportunities. Every time you say yes to something that doesn't serve you, you're saying no to something that could. Your time and energy are finite. If you're always giving it away to people who drain you, where will you find the strength to pursue your goals, your passions, your future? Over-friendliness distracts you from your purpose. It ties you down to obligations that don't move you forward. And one day you wake up realizing you've been living for everyone else but yourself. Perhaps the biggest cost of all is safety. Being too friendly makes you vulnerable to people with bad intentions. Manipulators, users, and predators thrive on people who can't say no. They see your friendliness not as kindness, but as weakness. They test your boundaries, and when they see you don't push back, they push further. They know you'll forgive easily, overlook quickly, and stay quiet to avoid conflict. And that makes you an easy target. In a world where not everyone plays fair, being too friendly can put you in dangerous situations, not just emotionally, but physically, financially, and spiritually. So let's ask the question again. What has being too friendly actually cost you? It may have cost you sleep, peace of mind, and energy. It may have cost you self-respect, confidence, and opportunities. It may even have cost you safety and trust. The truth is, the cost is always greater than you realize, because it compounds over time. One small compromise seems harmless, but add up years of compromises, and you've built a life that doesn't belong to you. You've built a life where you are constantly available to everyone but yourself. The good news is, you can change it. The moment you recognize the cost, you have the power to stop paying it. You don't have to explain yourself. You don't have to apologize for protecting your space. All you need to do is draw the line. Because here's the thing, real friends, real partners, real people who care about you, they don't require you to betray yourself in order to keep them. They don't demand your silence, your exhaustion, or your endless giving. They respect you more when you respect yourself. Over-friendliness feels safe in the moment. It feels easier to just go along, to smile, to agree. But long-term, it is the most dangerous choice you can make because it chips away at the core of who you are. Strength isn't about pleasing everyone. Strength is about knowing where you stand and having the courage to stay there, even if it means someone doesn't like you. So the next time you feel the urge to be overly friendly, pause. Ask yourself, is this kindness or is this self-betrayal? Am I giving from a place of strength, or am I giving because I'm afraid to say no? If it's the latter, stop, because the cost of being too friendly is simply too high, and you can no longer afford to pay it. There's a misconception many people carry that kindness and weakness are the same thing. They confuse being gentle, compassionate, or understanding with being passive, soft, or incapable of standing up for themselves. That's why so many people who live with an open heart end up being taken advantage of, because the world often mistakes kindness for weakness. But let's be clear, true kindness is never weakness. True kindness requires strength, courage, and discipline. Weakness, on the other hand, is the absence of boundaries, the fear of confrontation, and the inability to protect yourself. Kindness is a choice. It's intentional. It's something you give because you want to, not because you're afraid of the consequences if you don't. Weakness isn't a choice. It's surrendering to pressure, to guilt, or to fear of rejection. When you're kind, you help someone in need without losing yourself in the process. When you're weak, you help because you're terrified of what will happen if you say no. The difference may sound subtle, but it is everything. One comes from a place of inner power, the other from a place of insecurity. Think about someone you deeply respect. Chances are they're not respected simply because they're friendly. They're respected because they balance kindness with firmness. They know when to give and when to hold back. They know when to open the door and when to close it. People admire them not because they say yes to everything, but because they stand for something. That's the essence of strength disguised as kindness. It's generosity wrapped in wisdom. Now think of a person who's always agreeable, always smiling, always accommodating. At first, they may seem pleasant, easy to get along with, but over time you start to notice something. Others don't take them seriously. People cut them off in conversations, pile responsibilities onto them, or dismiss their feelings. Why? Because deep down, their friendliness doesn't command respect. Their constant need to please exposes them as someone who will bend under pressure. That's not kindness, that's weakness disguised as politeness. The problem with weakness is that it invites disrespect. People don't always consciously intend to misuse you, but when they sense you won't enforce your limits, they stop considering them. It's human nature. We push where we feel we can. Weakness makes you a magnet for users, manipulators, and those who thrive on control. You may tell yourself you're just being nice, but what you're really doing is handing over the steering wheel of your life to anyone who wants to drive. Kindness, however, is different. Kindness operates within boundaries. It says, I'll give, but not at the expense of my dignity. I'll support you, but not if it drains me of everything I need to survive. I'll forgive, but I won't keep opening the same door for you to hurt me again. That's not weakness. That's strength in its purest form. It takes strength to say no when your whole body wants to avoid conflict. It takes strength to walk away from people who don't value you. It takes strength to stay kind in a world that often rewards cruelty. Kindness is active. Weakness is passive. Kindness says, I choose to treat you with respect, regardless of how you treat me, because my behavior reflects my character. Weakness says, I'll tolerate your disrespect because I don't know how to stop it. Do you see the difference? One builds you, the other breaks you. A wise person knows that not everyone deserves access to their kindness. They know kindness is a gift, not an obligation. Weakness, however, gives that gift away freely, even to those who abuse it. And the tragedy is, when you let weakness masquerade as kindness for too long, you lose sight of yourself. You forget what it feels like to stand firm, to use your voice, to honor your own needs. You end up shrinking to fit the comfort of others. And in doing so, you betray yourself. Let's be honest, it's not easy to draw the line. People will guilt you. They'll say you've changed, you've become cold, you've lost your heart. They'll tell you that you're selfish for choosing yourself. That's because your strength threatens the comfort of their control. Weakness feeds their ego. Kindness with boundaries forces them to respect you or walk away. And here's the truth. Anyone who abandons you for having boundaries was never there for you in the first place. Real kindness has power. It heals, it inspires, and it elevates everyone it touches. But it cannot exist without self-respect. You cannot pour into others if you're constantly running on empty. You cannot lift others while burying yourself under the weight of their expectations. Weakness will keep you silent when you should speak. It will keep you stuck when you should move. It will keep you giving to people who only take. But kindness, real kindness, will set you free, because it comes from a place of choice, not fear. So the next time someone confuses your kindness for weakness, don't explain yourself. Don't argue, don't try to prove your strength. Simply enforce your boundaries. Speak less, act more. Let your actions show that kindness is not submission. It is strength under control. Because the truth is, anyone can lash out. Anyone can be cruel. Anyone can use force. That's easy. What's rare, what's powerful, what's truly courageous is being able to show compassion while standing firm. Weakness is easy. It's giving in. It's avoiding conflict. It's staying silent to keep the peace. Kindness, though, it's harder. It's choosing respect over approval, truth over comfort, and strength over fear. And once you master that difference, no one will ever mistake your heart for fragility again. When you live your life trying to be overly friendly, trying to keep everyone comfortable, you unknowingly open a door for people who thrive on exploiting exactly that trait. And here's the hard truth. There are people who study you, who notice your patterns, who see how quick you are to give, to forgive, to sacrifice. And they use that to their advantage. Not everyone operates with the same values you do. Some people aren't looking for real connection, they're looking for opportunity. They want access to your time, your energy, your kindness, and sometimes even your resources. And if you're not careful, your friendliness becomes their strategy. Think about the users. These are the people who only show up when they need something. You know, the ones they suddenly remember you exist when they want a favor, when they're in trouble, or when they need your support. They wrap it in charm, in friendliness, maybe even in flattery. But if you pay attention, you'll see the pattern. Their presence is transactional. They come around when they need, but when you're the one reaching out, when you're the one in need, silent. And because you've built a reputation for being so nice, you find it hard to say no. You keep showing up for them because that's who you are. But every time you do, you're teaching them that your boundaries are optional. Then there are the manipulators. These people don't just use your friendliness, they weaponize it. They know you don't like confrontation, they know you want to be liked, and they twist that to control you. They might say things like, "I thought you were different," or "I thought we were friends," making you feel guilty for not giving them what they want. They'll push you into situations where you're uncomfortable, then make you feel like you're the problem. If you resist, your desire to avoid conflict becomes their leverage. And before you know it, you're bending, adjusting, and accommodating until you're no longer living by your own values. You're living by theirs. And then come the energy drainers, the emotional vampires who feed off your attention, your time, your listening ear. These are the people who never refill your cup, but expect you to constantly refill theirs. They unload their problems onto you again and again, but when you share yours, they tune out or dismiss them. Their negativity becomes a weight you carry, even when it's not your responsibility. They don't care if you're tired, if you have your own struggles, or if you just don't have the capacity that day. They will take as much as you're willing to give. And because you've built an identity around being available and friendly, you stay, you listen, you absorb until their storm becomes your storm. This is how exploitation works. It doesn't always come in obvious forms. It's not always about someone stealing money or demanding outrageous things. Most of the time, it's subtle. It's the slow erosion of your boundaries. It's the quiet manipulation of your desire to be liked. It's the way your friendliness gets twisted into a tool for others to take more than they give. And you don't realize the damage until you feel drained, disrespected, and sometimes even resentful of yourself for letting it happen. And let's be clear, exploitation doesn't only happen in personal relationships. It happens at work too. Think about the colleague who keeps piling tasks onto you because they know you won't push back, or the boss who relies on your willingness to go the extra mile, but never acknowledges or compensates you for it. The workplace is full of people who know exactly how to spot someone who's too friendly, too eager to please, and they use it to lighten their load while adding to yours. And the more you comply, the more they expect. You see, friendliness in itself isn't the problem. It's beautiful to be kind, generous, and approachable. The problem is when you confuse friendliness with responsibility. You start thinking you owe people your time, your energy, your resources just because they ask. But you don't. You don't owe anyone access to you simply because you want to be seen as nice. And if you don't recognize the difference, you'll keep feeding users, manipulators, and energy drainers while starving yourself of peace, respect, and strength. The danger in being too friendly is that you often ignore the warning signs. You dismiss the discomfort in your gut because you don't want to seem rude. You overlook the imbalance because you're afraid of conflict. You justify their behavior because you don't want to lose the connection. But every time you do that, you give away another piece of your power. And here's the truth. Once people realize you're willing to betray yourself to keep them happy, they will never stop testing how far they can go. That's why the most important skill you can learn is discernment. Not everyone who smiles at you has good intentions. Not everyone who calls themselves your friend is truly in your corner. You need to watch how people treat you, not just when they need you, but when you need them. Do they show up for you or only for themselves? Do they respect your no, or do they push until you fold? Do they leave you feeling uplifted, or do they drain the life out of you? The answers to those questions reveal everything. The truth is, being too friendly can make you forget your worth. You become so focused on being liked that you forget to be respected. And respect will always take you further than friendliness ever could. Users, manipulators, and energy drainers may benefit from your over-friendliness, but at the end of the day, you're the one paying the cost. And once you realize that, once you start setting boundaries and protecting your energy, you'll see how quickly the wrong people fall away. They're not leaving because you became cold or difficult. They're leaving because you stopped giving them unlimited access to exploit you. And here's the beauty of that truth. When you stop being too friendly to everyone, you create space for real connections with the right people. People who value you, respect you, and don't take advantage of your kindness. People who don't see your friendliness as weakness, but as the gift that it is. And that's when you'll realize that your friendliness was never the problem. The problem was giving it away to those who didn't deserve it. From the time we are young, so many of us are trained to believe that being liked is the highest goal we can aim for. We're told to play nice, to keep the peace, to make sure people feel comfortable around us. And while there's nothing wrong with being likable, the truth is that being liked without being respected is one of the most dangerous traps you can fall into. Respect will always be greater than being liked, because respect anchors your worth, while being liked often depends on how much of yourself you're willing to give away. Think about it. Being liked is fragile, it's conditional. It's based on what people want from you at any given moment. One day, people may like you because you're generous with your time, because you always say yes, because you're willing to sacrifice yourself for their comfort. But the second you say no, the second you stop bending, the second you put your needs ahead of theirs, that so-called like can vanish. If their affection depends on your compliance, then it was never genuine to begin with. Respect, on the other hand, doesn't disappear when you set boundaries. In fact, it grows. When you stand firm in who you are, when you refuse to be walked on, when you make it clear that your time and energy are valuable, people may not always like you, but they will have no choice but to respect you. Here's the problem with chasing likability. It keeps you trapped in other people's approval. You measure your worth by their smiles, their validation, their acceptance. And in doing so, you hand over the keys to your identity. You're no longer living by your values, you're living by theirs. If they want you to shrink, you shrink. If they want you to stay quiet, you silence yourself. If they want you to give, you give, even when you're empty. But what happens when their preferences shift? What happens when pleasing them conflicts with your own needs? That's when you feel the tug of war inside yourself. And deep down, you know you're betraying your own dignity just to stay liked. Respect doesn't demand that you betray yourself. Respect is built on consistency, on integrity, on strength. When people respect you, it's not because you bend to their will. It's because you stand by your own. They may not always agree with you. They may not even enjoy hearing the truth you speak, but they recognize your courage, your authenticity, and your unwillingness to compromise who you are. And that kind of recognition is far more powerful and long-lasting than shallow approval ever could be. The truth is, people might like you for what you give them, but they respect you for what you refuse to compromise on. Think of the moments in your life when someone stood their ground with you, when they held a boundary, when they told you a hard truth you didn't want to hear. You may not have liked it in that moment. In fact, you may have felt frustrated or even angry. But later, when the dust settled, you respected them for it. That's the difference. Respect outlives temporary emotion. Liking someone can shift with moods, but respect anchors itself in the strength of their character. If you're always trying to be liked, you end up being agreeable even when it costs you your peace. You stay silent in rooms where your voice is needed. You accept treatment that chips away at your self-worth. And you tell yourself, at least they like me. But at what cost? Because while they may like the version of you that makes their life easier, deep down you know they don't respect you. They don't value you as an equal. They value you as someone who's convenient, someone who's safe to take from without resistance. And the day you finally decide you've had enough, that like will vanish because it was never rooted in truth. It was rooted in your compliance. Respect requires courage. It requires you to risk being disliked. It means you're willing to walk away from situations where your value isn't honored. It means you'd rather stand alone in your authenticity than be surrounded by people who only like you because you're easy to exploit. And yes, that can be lonely at first. When you start demanding respect instead of approval, some people will fall away. But understand this, those who leave when you stop being overly friendly were never for you in the first place. They were for what you gave them, and losing them isn't a loss, it's a clearing. It's space opening up for the right people to step in. Think about the leaders, the role models, the people you look up to. Do you admire them because they were liked by everyone? Or do you admire them because they were firm, because they had conviction, because they stood for something even when it wasn't popular? Greatness is not built on likability, it's built on respect. And respect is built on strength. Here's a paradox. When you prioritize respect over being liked, you actually attract deeper, more genuine relationships. Because the right people, the ones who value you, who want to walk alongside you, will not be repelled by your boundaries. They will be drawn to them. They will feel safe with you because they know you are honest, you are real, and you are not pretending to be something you're not just to please them. They may not always like everything you say or do, but they'll trust you, and trust is the foundation of real connection. The moment you stop obsessing over being liked, you free yourself. You no longer live as a prisoner of other people's moods and expectations. You live as someone who owns their voice, their choices, and their identity. And yes, not everyone will like it, but those who respect it will be the people who matter, the people who build you up instead of draining you, the people who see you not as a doormat, but as an equal. And that is worth more than 1,000 shallow likes. So the next time you find yourself wondering, do they like me? Pause. Ask a better question. Do they respect me? Because being liked is temporary, but respect will carry you through every room, every relationship, and every challenge with your dignity intact. And in the end, respect is what you will always need more than approval. There comes a moment in life when you realize that your peace is your most valuable possession. It's more valuable than money, more valuable than status, more valuable than being liked, and yet it's often the first thing we give away without even realizing it. Every time you say yes when you really want to say no, every time you go along with something that doesn't sit right with you, every time you prioritize someone else's comfort over your own sanity, you're trading away your peace, and the people who take it from you rarely give it back. That's why learning to say no without guilt isn't just an option, it's survival. Most people struggle with no because we've been conditioned to associate it with rejection. We're taught that saying no makes us selfish, rude, or unkind. From a young age, many of us are told to share, to compromise, to keep the peace, to not make waves. So by the time we're adults, we've become fluent in yes, even when every fiber of our being is screaming no. But here's the truth. Every yes you give away carelessly is a no to yourself. Every time you overextend for others, you undercut your own needs. And while it might make someone else happy in the short term, it slowly drains you in the long run. Think about the times you've said yes when you didn't want to. Maybe it was a friend who wanted your time when you were exhausted. Maybe it was a family member who guilt-tripped you into helping when you had your own responsibilities. Maybe it was at work, when you took on more than your fair share because you didn't want to disappoint. You walked away smiling, acting like everything was fine, but inside you felt drained, resentful, maybe even angry at yourself. That resentment is your soul's way of telling you the truth. You betrayed yourself in that moment. The guilt that often follows a no is something we have to unlearn. Because guilt is usually not about wrongdoing, it's about conditioning. It's about the fear of disappointing others, the fear of being misunderstood, the fear of being called selfish. But let me ask you, why is protecting your mental health selfish? Why is preserving your time wrong? Why is valuing your own needs a weakness? The people who want you to feel guilty for saying no are often the ones who benefit from your inability to say it. They thrive on your overextension because it makes their life easier, but easier for them means heavier for you. Saying no is an act of respect for yourself and for others. When you say no, you're being honest. You're not leading someone on. You're not pretending to give what you can't. You're not creating false expectations. That honesty may not always be well received, but it builds clarity, and clarity is powerful. The people who truly value you will respect your no. They'll understand that your boundaries are a reflection of your worth, not a rejection of them. And the people who don't respect your no, they're revealing who they are. They're showing you that they were never invested in you, only in what they could get from you. Learning to say no also gives you back control over your time and energy. Your time is not infinite. Your energy is not unlimited. If you keep saying yes to every demand, you leave nothing left for your own growth, your own goals, your own healing. Protecting your peace means recognizing that not every request deserves your attention. Not every problem is yours to solve. Not every invitation needs your presence. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is decline and walk away without explaining yourself. You don't owe everyone a justification for your no. No is a complete sentence. And let's talk about fear of conflict. Many people avoid saying no because they don't want confrontation. They'd rather carry the weight themselves than risk upsetting someone else. But the truth is, avoiding conflict doesn't remove it. It just buries it inside you. That buried frustration, that silent resentment, it grows. It eats away at your peace. And eventually it will come out, whether in burnout, anger, or a broken relationship. Saying no may feel uncomfortable in the moment, but it prevents years of hidden tension. It protects your peace long-term by ensuring you don't live in quiet resentment. There's also strength in realizing that no doesn't always have to be harsh. You can say no with kindness, with grace, with firmness. You can say, I appreciate you thinking of me, but I can't commit to that right now. Or I understand you need help, but I'm not in a position to do that. Or sometimes just, no thank you. It doesn't have to be dramatic, it just has to be clear. The point isn't to shut people out, but to stop shutting yourself down. When you begin to master the power of no, something shifts inside you. You start to realize that your peace matters more than their approval. You recognize that protecting your mental and emotional space allows you to show up better in the areas that actually matter. And you discover that the relationships worth keeping are the ones where your no is respected as much as your yes. The truth is, if you don't protect your peace, no one else will. People will take as much as you're willing to give. Not because they're evil, but because it's human nature to receive what's freely offered. It's your job to draw the line. It's your responsibility to safeguard your own well-being. And the more you practice saying no without guilt, the more natural it becomes. You stop over-explaining. You stop apologizing for protecting your energy. You stop sacrificing yourself on the altar of other people's comfort. So ask yourself, what would your life look like if you stopped saying yes to things that drained you? How much lighter would you feel if you only committed to what aligned with your values, your energy, and your purpose? How much stronger would you become if you treated your peace as sacred and defended it like your life depended on it? Because it does. Your peace is your foundation. Without it, everything else crumbles. Saying no is not rejection, it's protection. It's not selfishness, it's self-preservation. And once you truly embrace that, you'll stop carrying guilt for choosing yourself. You'll start living with clarity, with confidence, and with the unshakable calm that comes from knowing your peace is not up for negotiation. At the end of the day, life will test you. People will test you. And if you spend your whole life trying to be liked, trying to be the friendly one, trying to keep everyone happy, you will lose yourself. You cannot afford that. Because once your peace is gone, once your boundaries are gone, once your dignity is gone, you have nothing left to stand on. Being too friendly is not kindness. It's self-betrayal. And the world does not reward self-betrayal. It rewards strength. It rewards clarity. It rewards those who know who they are, what they stand for, and what they will and will not allow. So stop apologizing for your boundaries. Stop shrinking so others can feel big. Stop giving your time, your energy, your power away to people who don't deserve it. You don't need to be liked by everyone. You don't need everyone's approval. What you need is to respect yourself enough to protect your peace, to guard your worth, and to stand firm even when it makes others uncomfortable. Because the truth is this, people may not always like you, but they will always respect you when you respect yourself, and respect will carry you further than friendliness ever could. So from this day forward, stop being too friendly. Be kind. Yes. Be compassionate. Yes. But never at the cost of your own strength. Your life, your peace, and your future are worth more than that.